Humans are the most fertile creatures in the galaxy. Alien scientists shocked Sci-Fi HFY story. The research station drifted in silence above a pale yellow star. Its halls were clean and bright, built by many species working together. Inside the main data room, a scientist named Vila stood alone, reading numbers that made her hands shake. Vila was calm by nature. She had studied life for more than 40 cycles. She had seen species rise, spread, and then slowly fade. Most followed the same pattern. They grew strong, reached comfort, and then stopped growing. Birth numbers fell. Hope became thin. Extinction followed. But the data on her screen did not follow that pattern. The numbers belonged to humans. Humans came from a small blue planet far from the galactic core. They were young compared to other spacefaring races. They were not the strongest. They were not the smartest. Their technology had arrived late, yet their population charts climbed in ways that should not be possible. Vila enlarged the display and checked the sources again. Human worlds damaged by war showed rising birth numbers. Colonies hit by plagues recovered faster than expected. Even deep space settlements with poor resources reported growing families. This was wrong. At least, it should have been. Vila whispered to herself that the system must be broken. She ran the scan again using a different method. She pulled data from medical ships, trade stations, and neutral observers. Each time the results stayed the same. Humans did not slow down when life became hard. They increased. Vila stepped back and pressed her hands together. If this was true, it would change everything the galaxy believed about survival. A soft tone echoed through the room. A message appeared, announcing the arrival of a diplomatic vessel. The visitor was human. Later that cycle, Vila watched from a balcony as the human envoy walked through the main hall. He was called Tom. He was average by human standards, neither tall nor small. His face showed lines of stress, but his eyes were alert and curious. Tom looked around the station with open interest. He greeted passing aliens with polite words and small gestures of respect. Some nodded back. Others watched him with careful distance. Humans were still new to the council. Many species did not know what to think of them yet. Vila did not greet Tom right away. Instead, she followed him at a distance, observing. She noted how he smiled when spoken to, even when conversations became tense. She noted how he asked questions about families and home worlds instead of trade routes or power. That behavior was unusual for an envoy. When Tom finally entered the assigned guest chamber, Vila returned to the data room. She needed to be sure before speaking to anyone. She opened historical records from extinct species. One by one, she compared them to humans. The pattern was clear. When resources became scarce, most species delayed reproduction. When danger rose, they chose safety over growth. Humans did the opposite. In times of fear, they formed stronger bonds. They built families as if daring the universe to stop them. Vila felt something close to awe. A warning signal interrupted her thoughts. Access request incoming. Security level moderate. The station security officer, Rook, entered the room. His body was built for defense, thick and heavy, with eyes trained to spot danger. "You requested privacy," Rook said, "but your data pulls triggered alerts." Vila turned the display so he could see. "Look at this." Rook studied the charts in silence, his expression darkened. "This will cause fear," he said. "Yes," Vila replied, "but it is real." Rook crossed his arms. "If the council sees this, they will react badly. Some already worry humans expand too fast." "They do expand," Vila said, "but not through force. Through life." Rook did not answer. Instead, he asked the question many were afraid to voice. "Are they a threat?" Vila shook her head slowly. "I do not know yet, but ignoring this would be more dangerous." Rook warned her that unofficial studies could be shut down. Still, he agreed to delay any report until she gathered more proof. That night's cycle, Vila could not rest. She kept thinking about human history, about how often they faced disaster, about how often they refused to disappear. The next cycle, Vila met Tom in a quiet observation room. Stars drifted slowly beyond the clear wall. "I study life," Vila said, "not politics." Tom smiled faintly. "I wish more people said that." She asked him about human colonies, about rebuilding after loss, about why humans chose to bring children into uncertain futures. Tom did not answer right away. He looked out at the stars. "We do it because giving up feels worse," he said. "When everything is falling apart, starting a family reminds us why we survive." Vila felt a chill move through her body. After the meeting, she returned to the data room and accessed restricted archives. Ancient records from a fallen civilization appeared on the screen. Most were damaged, but one message remained intact. It spoke of a species that grew stronger under pressure, a species that filled empty worlds, a species feared not for its weapons, but for its numbers and endurance. The record ended with a single warning. If such a species rises again, the galaxy must choose whether to fear it or stand beside it. Vila stared at the screen long after the message faded. She realized that humans were not following the old rules because they were rewriting them. Outside the station, the human ship waited patiently, carrying a species that refused to fade. And Vila knew this was only the beginning. Vila could not stop thinking about the humans. Every hour she spent in the observation deck, she watched the human colony's records grow. Each report told the same story. Despite wars, plagues, and starvation, humans increased. They did not collapse. They did not fade. They continued to thrive. Vila decided she needed more data. She traveled to one of the human settlements near the edge of the system. The colony was small, built on rocky soil, with shelters made of metal and stone. The landscape looked harsh, but life was everywhere. Children ran barefoot, playing in the dust. Adults worked the fields and repaired machines. There was laughter even in the heat of hard labor. She met a human named Myra who worked as a doctor. Myra welcomed her with curiosity and warmth. Humans seemed to sense Vila's hesitation and fear, but they did not treat her with suspicion. Myra led Vila to the medical center, where the population records were kept. Vila noticed the charts showed children born even after disasters. Families had lost homes and loved ones, but their numbers kept climbing. "How do you survive this?" Vila asked Myra. "Other species would collapse," Myra smiled. "We do not see collapse as the end. It is a challenge. We build again. We care for each other. We hope." Vila began to understand. Humans did not depend solely on resources or protection. They depended on each other, on the bonds they shared. Fear did not stop them. It pushed them forward. Rook, the security officer from the research station, joined Vila during her study. He was skeptical at first. "I do not trust this," he said. "They are small, they should not survive this long, yet they do. What are they hiding?" Vila shook her head. "Nothing, they are just different." They visited a disaster site where a human colony had been destroyed by a meteor storm. Vila expected emptiness, ruin, and despair. Instead, she saw construction, farms being restored, children laughing despite the rubble. Adults were organizing resources, rebuilding shelters, and caring for the injured. Human resilience was more than biological. It was emotional, social, and relentless. Rook whispered, "This is unnatural. No species should respond like this." Vila agreed silently. She reviewed more historical records. Species that failed usually lacked hope. They focused on survival as a number, a statistic. Humans treated life itself as a purpose. They multiplied when danger was greatest, as if life itself was their weapon against extinction. That evening, Myra shared stories of human history. Vila listened closely. Every colony, every disaster, every challenge ended in some victory of survival. Even when humans were alone on a distant world, they found a way to adapt. They learned the environment, improved it, and formed communities. Vila realized this was why their population remained strong. A signal came from an ancient alien archive. It contained warnings from species long extinct. Most entries were lost, but one record was intact. It told of a species that grew fastest when challenged, a species feared not for weapons, but for their numbers and determination. They were said to have saved other species by sheer persistence. The record suggested such species could rewrite the rules of survival in the galaxy. Vila stared at the message. She could not believe humans fit the description. They were young, untested, and small in numbers, yet they showed every sign of the same unstoppable force. Tom arrived at the colony to meet Vila and Myra. He spoke about Earth and other human colonies, about how humans did not give up, even when everything seemed lost. Vila noticed how he inspired confidence in humans and even alien observers. His presence seemed to strengthen the human determination to survive and grow. Rook expressed concern. The Council will not accept this. They will fear humans. They may try to stop them. Vila nodded. We must understand them first. We cannot let fear dictate action. The colony night fell and the stars shone brightly over the rocky hills. Vila could hear the distant voices of children playing and families talking. Despite all hardships, life pulsed strong. She realized that humans were more than a species. They were a force of life itself, a species that refused to fade. As Vila returned to the research station, she knew she had to continue her studies secretly. The galaxy could not yet understand the power humans carried. If it did, reactions could be dangerous, even hostile. For now, she would watch, learn, and record the unstoppable force that was humanity. The Galactic Council Chamber was a grand structure of light and metal, orbiting near a massive, dying star. Vila and Rook arrived to present their findings, though they had not yet decided what to reveal. They both knew the Council would react with shock and fear. Humans were not a threat by weapons, but their population growth and resilience challenged centuries of galactic understanding. Council members from many species were already present. Some were tall, with skin that shimmered like the surface of water. Others had multiple eyes and limbs, all observing silently. The murmurs quieted as Vila stepped forward, showing the charts of human colonies, their growth and recovery after disasters. Whispers ran through the chamber. Some council members frowned, exchanging anxious glances. One elder, a species that prided itself on careful control of reproduction, stood and demanded, "Are we to believe this? A species so young, yet their numbers defy every law of survival." Vila nodded. "Yes, it is true. Humans do not follow the patterns we see in other species. They grow when danger is greatest. They rebuild even after near-extinction events." A counselor from a desert world slammed a clawed hand on the table. "If this is true, we cannot allow them to spread unchecked. They will dominate every star system with sheer numbers. We must isolate them." Vila took a deep breath. Humans do not dominate with force. They grow because they endure. They survive because they care for each other and their families. They adapt to every environment we have tested, faster than any known species. Another counselor, smaller and covered in soft scales, hissed softly. "Then they will rule by survival alone. That is dangerous." At that moment, Tom stepped forward. His calm presence filled the chamber. He explained that humans did not seek conquest. They sought life, community, and continuity. His words were simple, but they carried the weight of generations who had survived impossible odds. Vila noticed how humans in the audience nodded quietly. Even those skeptical seemed to pause. The human approach to survival was not through fear or dominance, but through resilience, hope, and connection. Vila also presented evidence from distant colonies. One report showed a human settlement that had survived a cosmic storm, losing half its population. Within a short time, the colony doubled its numbers. Children played where ruins once stood. Farms flourished. Adults repaired buildings and machines tirelessly. Humans rebuilt life even when it seemed impossible. Rook whispered to Vila, "They will panic." "They do not understand this." Vila nodded. "Let them see the facts. They will fear humans, but we must show the truth." A scientist named Lorne, who feared human expansion, tried to question the evidence. "These numbers must be manipulated. It is impossible." Vila calmly explained her methods, detailing scans, reports, and field studies. Tom added stories of human colonies, of rebuilding and survival. Myra's data from the medical centers confirmed the resilience of humans under stress. The council was divided. Some still wanted restrictions. Others, quietly, began to understand that humans were not a threat by force, but a hope for survival. They could stabilize regions devastated by war or disaster. Vila realized that humans could indeed change the galaxy, not through domination, but by being a species that refused to fade. The idea was difficult for many to accept. They feared the unknown, but those who saw the evidence could not deny it. As the session ended, reports came from remote human colonies. One had survived an alien virus that wiped out much of a native species. The humans were not just surviving, they were thriving in conditions that should have been fatal. Vila felt a chill. She realized humans were more than a strong species. They were a force of life, spreading hope and survival wherever they went. No weapon could match the power of a species that multiplied when others fell. No army could defeat a species whose will to live was stronger than any challenge. Outside, the stars continued to drift silently, but the galaxy had changed. Humans were not just a species among many. They were a puzzle, a mystery, and potentially a savior or threat, depending on how others understood them. Vila knew that understanding humans fully was the only way to ensure the galaxy could survive alongside them. Vila returned to the research station with a new determination. She had to understand why humans were so different. She worked closely with Myra, studying human biology, psychology, and social patterns. Every discovery seemed to deepen the mystery. Humans adapted faster than any known species. Their bodies responded to environmental changes, their minds adjusted to stress, and their communities reorganized under pressure. Even their reproduction was unusual. Unlike most species that slowed down in danger, humans increased their numbers when faced with threats. One evening, Vila and Myra examined a colony that had been hit by a severe solar flare. Most species would have lost large portions of their population and failed to recover for decades. Humans, however, began rebuilding immediately. Families expanded, children were born, and life returned quickly. Vila was stunned. It is not just biology, it is hope. Humans multiply because they refuse to accept the end, she whispered. Rook, who had been observing, shook his head. It is unnatural. No species should respond like this. They turn disaster into growth. Vila nodded. It is not unnatural, it is different, and it is powerful. The next cycle, a rival scientist named Lorne attempted to sabotage the research. Lorne believed humans were dangerous and wanted to erase all findings. He infiltrated the lab and tried to destroy the data servers. Rook and Vila intercepted him just in time. Lorne was expelled from the station, but the attempt reminded them of how others feared humans. The galaxy was not ready to accept a species that defied all previous rules. Vila continued her studies, uncovering the deeper truth. Human fertility was linked not to comfort or safety, but to emotional strength. Humans produced life because they hoped for a future. The worse the situation, the stronger their will to create and protect the next generation. Myra explained, "We carry hope in every child. Even in darkness, we see light. It is not just survival, it is the belief that life must continue." Vila watched families rebuilding after disasters. She saw humans teaching children survival skills while nurturing their curiosity. She saw them helping other species recover from their own losses. Their endurance was not selfish, it was communal. It reinforced bonds and strengthened communities. Rook admitted quietly, "They are not a threat, they are something else entirely." Vila knew he was right. Humans were not a weapon. They were life itself, an unstoppable force that could restore what other species lost. And in a galaxy where extinction was common, that power was unimaginable. Vila compiled her findings into a secret report. She included evidence from colonies, historical patterns, and personal observations. This report would not only explain humans but also serve as a warning. The galaxy must understand humans, or fear and misunderstanding could lead to unnecessary conflict. As she finished, she looked out at the stars. Human children played in distant colonies. Adults worked tirelessly, rebuilding and expanding. Life pulsed stronger than ever. The galaxy had never seen anything like it, and many would struggle to comprehend it. For the first time, Vila felt both awe and hope. Humans were not just surviving. They were changing the rules of life itself, and the galaxy would soon have to choose how to live with a species that refused to fade. The council reconvened after months of deliberation. Members arrived with uncertainty and tension, unsure of how to deal with the humans. Vila and Rook entered with the secret report and the evidence of human resilience. The room was filled with whispers, some fearful, some curious. Vila stepped forward and presented the findings. The charts, colony reports, and personal testimonies showed what she and Myra had discovered. Humans multiplied when others failed. They adapted to every environment. They rebuilt after disasters. They were not violent conquerors but life-bearers. Some council members argued for restrictions. They feared human expansion. They feared the unknown, but others began to see the truth. Humans were a force for life, capable of restoring dying colonies and aiding species in peril. Tom spoke to the council. His words were calm, honest, and simple. He explained that humans did not seek power through destruction. They multiplied to ensure survival, to protect communities, and to create hope. Every human colony, every child born in hardship, was proof of a species that refused to fade. Reports arrived from distant human colonies. One had recovered from a devastating plague, doubling in numbers within a cycle. Another had survived environmental collapse, building a thriving settlement where nothing should have grown. The council members watched in silence, unable to deny the evidence. Vila concluded, "Humans are not a threat in the traditional sense. They are a safeguard against extinction, a living force that strengthens the galaxy. If we understand them, we can learn from them, and the galaxy can survive alongside them." The chamber fell quiet. Slowly, one by one, council members nodded. They understood that humans were not just another species. They were something unique. Life itself seemed to flow through them in a way the galaxy had never seen. Outside the chamber, human children played on a station shared with aliens. Adults worked side by side, teaching, repairing, and nurturing. Life thrived wherever humans were. Vila watched them, realizing the galaxy would never be empty again. Rook whispered to her, "They are not ours to control, they are a gift to the future." Vila nodded. Humans had survived, endured, and multiplied beyond expectation. They were not just a species, they were hope. And the galaxy, for the first time in eons, had a chance to see life flourish in ways no one had imagined. As the stars drifted silently outside, Vila understood that the humans' story was only beginning. The galaxy would watch them, learn from them, and perhaps, in time, come to rely on them. A young species from a small blue planet had proven that endurance, hope, and the will to survive could change the fate of the entire galaxy.